Hello and welcome to Oklahoma Farm Bureau's 2023 Legislative Preview. I'm Rachel Havens, and today I'm joined by President Rodd Moesel with an inside look at some of the big topics we'll be covering at the state capitol this year. And Rodd, this year we've seen thousands of bills filed, as we do every year, and something that always seems to come to the top is some legislation on ad valorem taxes and county government. Can you give us a little insight into where our members stand on those issues and why?
Ad valorem is always one of our most important issues historically in Farm Bureau, and so we tend to start out very defensive on that front and want to, because that's a cost of doing business to us in agriculture. And we have to have a lot of land, have to have a lot of equipment for almost any commodity that someone's growing in agriculture. And so what can seem like innocent ad valorem increases can really be huge impact on ag operations. And so since we have to pay that, whether we're making a profit or not making a profit, we want to keep the reliance of the state on ad valorem taxes as low as possible. So we tend to start out fighting almost all ad valorem increases and trying to limit that, and having the state look at other sources of income that are maybe more dependent on profit and put less pressure on agricultural cost of production.
Well, similarly to ad valorem taxes, we have seen measures dealing with county zoning authority. Can you speak on that a little?
Yeah, that's been an issue we've dealt with for several years, and it's of great concern to our members. It's hard enough operating a farming operation today already with all the state and federal standards, and we're going to be very hesitant to be involved in any type of support for county zoning. We're basically, we're going to be against county zoning in just about every case I can imagine, because that just adds another layer of pressure and problems onto our farm and ranch operations across our state that are so important to provide the food and fiber that we need, not only to support Oklahoma citizens, but folks all over this country and around the world. So county zoning is a no-no in our book.
Definitely. Something else that really comes as no surprise this year is the number of bills we see on medical marijuana in general. What do you foresee that conversation looking like this year especially?
Well, of course, the wild card this year on marijuana is not just the legislation at the Capitol, but the public's going to be having a vote on March 7th, and that's the only issue on the ballot about whether to expand to recreational marijuana. My guess is that not much will happen, even though there's a number of bills filed at the Capitol. Probably not much will happen until we know the results of that statewide election. And our members have clear policy that we're against expansion to recreational marijuana. So Oklahoma Farm Bureau will be involved in efforts to try to beat that at the ballot box on March 7th. And the big issue, we've just seen some recent polling that shows that more people are against the recreational marijuana than are for it. But the question is, who's motivated to turn out when there's nothing else on the ballot? And once we know the results of that issue, that will affect lots of marijuana legislation, because the issues are a little bit different whether we're dealing with just the medical we already have or whether we're dealing with medical and recreational. But there's going to be already a number of bills filed, and there's a ton of shell bills out there as well. So we know there's going to be lots of marijuana legislation this year. How that plays out depends a lot on how the recreational marijuana vote goes March 7th. But we're certainly all going to be paying attention to that and ready to respond with whatever the playing field looks like.
Definitely. It'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Something else that we've seen this year especially are several bills on animal care standards. Can you tell us what are some of the implications that could happen with farmers and ranchers if those were to pass through?
Of course, the big elephant in the room, so to speak, is Proposition 12 in California. And the arguments were played out at the U.S. Supreme Court earlier. We're expecting a decision. I think most people expect we'll hear something by June from the Supreme Court on that ruling. And so how they rule on that issue will have huge, profound effects that affect animal care nationally. And there's already a number of bills filed here in the state legislature, two of them that I've seen already and that Steve Thompson and our crack legislative crew have briefed us on, are trying to put some money forward to help people convert to Prop 12, but it's way less than what the cost would be. I think the Pork Commission's estimated just in the pork industry, it'd be like a $350 to $400 million expense to change to the Prop 12 standards. We think that instead of being these forced actions and trying to do one size fits all, that we ought to let the market and the individual farmers and their veterinarians make the decisions that are right for the animal crop they're raising and for the conditions in their part of the state. Just like if you're grazing cattle in one area of the state, you can run a lot more cattle per 100 acre than you can in another part of the state. The same is true in all types of production. So there's lots of variation. So we think that needs to be a decision made between the farmer and their local veterinarian and their local support crew.
Definitely. Well, speaking of veterinarians, we have seen a couple of bills this year as well on Oklahoma State University's VetMed program. Can you tell us kind of why that's important to follow?
Well, and VetMed is very, very important to our animal industry. And of course, beef cattle is still by far our number one dollar commodity in Oklahoma. And we're already facing a real shortage of veterinarians, and we have a lot of veterinarians that are reaching retirement age. And so we have a crisis out across the state for big animal vets. And we at the same time have our vet school that's getting ready for another accreditation review. They've kind of been borderline in the last couple of accreditations. And so there's a thinking that we need to make a real investment in our vet school. We need to put more emphasis on big animal vet production. Of the kids that are going to vet school right now, a huge percentage of them are choosing to focus on small animal practice. And there may be some reasons for that. They may be able to charge more for treating dogs and cats than they're able to charge for working with cattle and pigs in commercial operations. And they maybe don't have to get up 7 days a week to go help deliver cattle when they're working with cats and dogs that is more of a 9 to 5 or whatever hours they set. So we have some real issues in the vet area, from retirements to the accreditation of the vet school to a battle between small animal practice and large animal practice. And so we're excited about supporting efforts to give more support to the vet school and to get more large animal vets to support our very important animal ag industry in our state.
Definitely. It's nice to see the legislature considering those measures there.
That's a big deal and high on our importance list this year.
Absolutely. Well, Rodd, with session starting next week, it'll be here before we know it. What are some things that our members can do to stay involved or stay on top of the policy process as we move through?
There's a number of things. Number one, we'll be starting up our weekly, a couple of things we do each week. This Lincoln to Local, I think this is the first one of the year. Most of the time you'll be visiting either with our own public policy staff or with legislators or public policy officials as we're dealing with those issues through the legislative session. And then we have a call for the real activists in our groups, our county leaders, a call each week that kind of gives the updates of what's going on at the Capitol that week. And so we would encourage folks to participate in those two things. But most of all, every Farm Bureau member, we hope you'll get to know your state representative and your state senator and get to know them, visit with them when you're back home in the district, get to know them before you need them so that when there's an issue up, if we put out a call for action or if you know of something that, from your own experience that needs that you need to visit with them, that you'll have that relationship so that you can call them or write them or email them and talk to them. I mentioned the calls to action. We're very careful about how many of those we do, but we have a system of call to action. We'd like to ask you to get registered, register your phone number, and if you get on that list for the call to action, whenever we put out the call, you'll get a note to your phone, and you can immediately respond to reach out to your House or Senate members. So those are all good ways to be involved. Go visit with your local rep or senator when they're holding coffees in your town, or whether it's at the County Farm Bureau office or whether it's at State Chamber or a community deal. Take advantage of that chance to get to know them so that you'll be able to reach out when the time is right.
Well, thank you, Rodd, and thank you for joining us for the 2023 Legislative Preview.